To solve this data sufficiency question, we'll consider each statement separately first and then together if needed. Before the statements, let's go ahead and label our quilt with various variable names. So we do have the width of the length and width of the interior of the quilt, and we have the length and width of the exterior of the quilt, the border. So we can go ahead and pick variable names. We can label them however we'd like. Let's go ahead and let's call the width of the border, that would be this width right here, let's call that X. And since we're interested in the area of the portion of the quilt that excludes the border, that would be the inside, we can go ahead and call this length L for length, and let's call this side W. And those would be dimensions of the interior of the quilt without the border. Meaning that if we were to look at the exterior, so the dimensions of the entire quilt including the border, this entire length would be the length of the interior, or the width of the interior, plus our width of the border. Now the width of the border goes all the way around, so that means that all of these widths of the border are all X. Even on the sides, they're all X. So this total width here would be W plus X, or W plus 2X. And using similar logic, we can actually label the length of the entire quilt. Again, we have this width here would also be X. So the length would be L plus 2X. And the question asks us what's the area of the portion of the quilt that excludes the border. So we're actually looking for whether we can find a value for the length times the width, which would be the area of the inside of the quilt. So let's go ahead and let's consider statement 1. And we'll work through and see if we're able to find a value for L times W. Statement 1 says the perimeter of the entire quilt is 244 inches. We can actually set up an equation for this using the variables that we labeled our diagram with. So the perimeter of the entire quilt would be the exterior, including the border. And we have that 2 times this length, because we have 2 of these sides, the top and the bottom. And then we have 2 of the widths, so one side here and one side here. So our perimeter is going to be 2 times L plus 2X plus 2 times W plus 2X. And that's going to equal 244, because that's what the statement gives us. Now let's try to simplify this a little bit, just to see if we can deduce anything about L or W. So distributing our 2, we have 2L plus 4X, 2L plus 4X plus 2W plus 4X equals 244. Rearranging a bit and just combining like terms and moving our X terms to the other side, we end up with 2L plus 2W equals 244 minus 8X. Over here, this actually represents the perimeter of the interior of the quilt. If we slide back up, 2L plus 2W will represent the perimeter of the quilt without the border. Now, even though we know the perimeter of both the exterior and the interior of that rectangle, we still can't deduce anything about L or W or the product of L times W. So we actually can't find the area of the interior of the quilt. So this statement alone is actually not sufficient for us. So let's slide back up and eliminate some of the answer choices. If statement 1 alone is not sufficient, we can eliminate answer choice A and answer choice D. We have choice B, C, and E left, so we're going to need to consider statement 2. So considering statement 2, we're given that we're told that the width of the border on all sides is 3 inches. Now looking at our picture that we labeled, that corresponds to x. So we're given that x is equal to 3. But without any information about either side of the entire quilt, we won't be able to find L or W or L times W. Knowing that this border is 3 inches wide all the way around, we don't have a value for the perimeter or a product or the length of any of the sides. So that alone is actually not sufficient. We just don't have enough information to determine L times W. So statement 2 alone is not sufficient. And we can actually eliminate answer choice B, leaving us with C or E. So we're going to need to combine statements. So sliding down, let's go ahead and combine our statements 1 and 2. By the same logic, if we combine our two statements, even if we plug x into the equation that we deduced from statement 1, we would only have 2L plus 2W equals 244 minus 8 times 3. Now we could calculate this and we'd get a number, but that would still only tell us the perimeter of the interior of the quilt, the inner rectangle. And from the perimeter, we still can't deduce what L or W is or what the product would be. We would need some sort of length or width of one of the sides at least to be able to deduce which one of those variables are. So in that case, both of our statements together are still not sufficient, just by the same logic as in statement 1. So we can eliminate answer choice C, and our final answer choice would be answer choice E. Both statements together are not sufficient.